So here's the notion I went to Congress with. A good economy makes all things possible. Everything's possible with a good economy when it comes to money. Not when it comes to life, when it comes to finances, everything is possible with a good economy. So how do you build a good economy? The first thing you have to do is we have to cut that $3.5 trillion down. As you can tell, it's going to be very difficult to cut it down because 76% automatic spending increases in that budget makes it very difficult to go in the other direction. And you can't get to the other direction based on simply not touching the entitlements. Let me go back to this slide for the last time, I hope. Remember this right here. All of this has automatic increases built into it. I'm going to tell you that my personal opinion is that there is waste in the area of our defense. We have, as members of Congress, placed our own sacred cows where we think we can hide them. And that is the place where Republicans hide sacred cows, in the defense area. I will suggest to you that according to the Ryan budget, we can find about $100 billion plus, up to $178 billion, B with boy, $1 billion of savings right here. Therefore, most of those dollars, we believe, need to be reinvested right there. Because I'm convinced that the world is becoming less safe. Anyone notice more volatility in the Middle East? Just me? So they train us well in North Charleston. Pay attention to the facts. I believe that we're going to need more money, not less money, as the decade moves on. So my hope is that as we find the sacred cows of Congress members, that we allow the military's budget to be military objectives. I'm not sure that we can actually reduce this number. I think we need the dollars. We just need to support the military and not members of Congress. Bottom line. I did say that to a bunch of Congress members, and they didn't clap. Interesting. I'm still too new to know any better. I hope to always be too new to know any better. So this number won't change, in my opinion. It'll go up. This we can do a lot of work with. We're going to work on this a lot. But this is also known as the area where most of national health care lives. The mandatory spending, most of national health care falls in that category. I think we can eliminate a whole lot of that. National health care represents $2.6 trillion new entitlement. Now, if you cannot afford all of this, why would you create a new entitlement? I will move on because you're exactly right. Now, let's get to some other. I ran for Congress and I signed a contract and said, hold me accountable. Some of y'all were at my last deal. When we did this, y'all held me accountable, and it's been a great concept process for me, beautiful thing. And I'm going to go through how we're doing on all these points as we go on through the slides, so we won't spend much time there, except for the next slide. So, protecting the Constitution, I think states' rights, state sovereignty, the 9th and 10th Amendment has to be protected against our federal government. I hate to say it, but there's no other way to put it but then to tell you the truth that, in fact, our federal government looks for ways to take over unions, which means it eliminates the right to work states like ours. They want to control fisheries. My good doctor friends will talk about that as well. They want to control our waterways inside our state boundaries. They want to control dust on a farm through EPA. They want to regulate dust at the farm. So says EPA. The cow emissions as well creates 25% of that which is emitted in the whole world. And somehow we're going to control that too. Eat more steak. I got you. Okay. This is a letter that I wrote on behalf of South Carolina to Nikki Haley suggesting that we are on your side. The South Carolina delegation, whether it's Tim Scott or Jeff Duncan, Mick Mulvaney, we are all on the same page, simply saying that we have to fight the union's attack on everything in our state. As government spending goes up, revenue goes down. Said differently, if you increase taxes, you get fewer dollars to the Treasury. It's counterintuitive. It's an inverse relationship. So every time you hear the current administration talk about increasing taxes, what they're really talking about in the long term is reducing revenues to our Treasury. Every time you talk about cutting taxes, taxes are the disincentive to the private sector to create jobs. When you cut taxes, private sector output goes up. And the link is unbreakable. John F. Kennedy, the great Republican. John F. Kennedy cut taxes, and revenue went up. Ronald Reagan cut taxes, exactly, and revenue went up. So this is not a partisan issue. This is what they call truth. There is an inverse relationship with as we cut the disincentive for something, the thing itself increases. If we want to have an opportunity to gain traction to pay off our debt, we actually have to reduce taxes. Because if we don't reduce taxes, our economy and our output will never garner traction in order to keep pace with the ability to pay down our debt. That is so important for us to do. Because, as you guys remember, there ain't no such thing as federal money. It's yours and it's mine. The federal government doesn't have money. It takes it from you and from me. I want mine back, by the way. So, to that end, I sponsored the H.R. 937, the Rising Tide Act, which is really after Ronald Reagan. And what it basically does is it reduces our corporate tax rate from 35% to 23%. Our corporate tax rate is the highest in the world, give or take Japan. The highest in the world. The average tax rate for corporations in the world is around 25%. 26%, 25, 26%. Now, why is this so important? Well, if you remember the slide, only $191 billion, or 9% of our revenue stream comes from corporations. By reducing the disincentive, we increase the revenue streams to our Treasury, and we create more American jobs. And because a part of this plan is to repatriate dollars that are double taxed, if you bring them back to America, we allow those $2 trillion to come home, create jobs, and reinvest in capital. Simply by doing this plan. This plan in 2.5 days had over 65 co-sponsors. The Washington Times did a great little editorial on it. Oh my God, who's that guy? Right here. That basically said, the illustration is right here. Here's a guy on a boat. The bubbles means he's underwater because of the debt we have. And the only way for us to get above water, where we can breathe again, is for us to cut our taxes. We have to cut both the corporate taxes and the personal taxes. The flat tax, what a marvel idea. I'm a co-sponsor of the flat tax. Whatever it takes. The Rising Tide starts attacking the corporate tax first, because that's the place where even President Obama says we can work together on corporate tax rates. We'll see if what he said is what he does. We'll find out in a little while. The second thing it does is it deals with the capital gains tax, goes to the death tax, and finally we get to the personal income tax. Whether it's flat or fair, we have to transform the way we tax Americans. If we are going to have a trajectory that allows our economy to grow, our debts to taper off. Now, some economists in the audience, someone like Tim Callanan, would suggest that we have to pay attention to inflation as the economy grows. Your interest rates may go up, and you still have a problem. So true. But here's what I know for sure. There's an election coming next year, right? 2012. President, 23 Democrats who are running for Senate, 9 Republicans. We have a great shot at getting the control of the Senate. Here's what's going to happen between now and then. I'm going to predict something. The interest rates are going to stay low. For one reason, because 2012 is an election year. So we need to make sure that we find the way to fine-tune our machine while we still have very low, unrealistically low interest rates. Because if they bump up 2 or 3 points, we find ourselves in a quagmire pit that's very difficult to get out. Mr. Sass, you appreciate what I'm talking about? Another good conservative. Here's the contract, some of the things that we've worked on. Rejecting cap and trade. One of the first bills we did, H.R. 1, stripped the money out of it and got rid of the czar. What's a czar? Okay, don't answer the question, but what's a czar?
Something we pay too much for.
Amen. We got too many of them as well. Pay too much, got too many, and they don't do much work. And,
Marxist, communist, czars are communists.
see, I thought y'all would get my hint. Good. Balanced budget. Now, how many of y'all know we're going to have a major vote on the debt ceiling coming up between May 16th and July 9th? What the conservatives in Congress are saying, whether it's Jim DeMint, Rand Paul, is that we have to tie the debt ceiling vote to a balanced budget amendment and statutory spending caps on discretionary spending. We have to systemically change the way we can spend money in Washington. Hire the best people you know. Hire the ones that you can trust the most. Hi. But let me tell you, keep us accountable by putting a ceiling over our heads and not allowing us to spend the money. A balanced budget. South Carolina has a balanced budget amendment. So if they have to cut, well, they may not do it all right, but they have one, and they do a better job than America. So if you have to cut 15 or 20% out of the budget, you cut 15 or 20% of the budget. You may not like the way that it gets done, but it gets done. In America, if you don't like it, you just increase the debt ceiling, which devalues your money, which creates stagnation, inflation, or deflation. It does all kinds of interesting things to the economy that we cannot explain or articulate, but we feel the effects of those things in the end because it costs more and we have less money and we pay higher taxes. We can't do this. We must fix the game so that we win. We win. And this is how we get there. We start with a balanced budget amendment. So we're doing that. We're working on it. We've got a team of conservatives that are working to have a balanced budget amendment and having statutory spending caps in there. Of course, I'm a smart guy, sir. Co-sponsored the fair tax, which was the first thing I did when I got there. I said, scribbled Tim Scott. And they said, how do you spell that? I said, any way you want to, brother. Just write it on the line. There I am fighting about spending in America. I was like, huh? And then the Washington Times ran our editorial on the rising tide because it had the perfect juxtaposition to President Obama's desire to increase taxes by $2 trillion. $2 trillion in the next 12 months. Eliminate all the Bush-era tax cuts, $1.5 trillion alone. We're in serious times, y'all. You cannot increase taxes by $2 trillion in 12 months and expect the recovery to continue, even if you have an artificially low interest rate environment. You can't do that. So Washington Times called me and said, Tim, we're going to run that thing for you. I'm like, well, go, baby, go. Also, drill, baby, drill. We'll get there in a second, okay? I saw your face. Physically sound policies. I've co-sponsored everything from having a balanced budget. We've cut our own staff. You know, some of us have challenges with the traditional leadership in Washington on the Republican side. I'll say that nicely. The fact of the matter is one of the first things we do. Yeah, Ron, you got the point. Okay, good. So we won't say Boehner. Anyways, so we cut our own accounts by $35 million, 5% decrease. We actually said if you want to run for president, pay for it yourself. New concept. Why should we support presidential candidates? Lots of other things. Co-sponsored RSC bill, which cuts $2.5 trillion. Now, you're talking about a painful cut? That's a painful cut. We cut tons of good things. But guess what? There's nothing compassionate about giving us today what we cannot afford and taking it away from the next generation of Americans. Nothing compassionate about that at all. Exactly. Runaway government spending. I was one of 47 Congress members that voted for every single spending cut in H.R. 1. Only 47 of us did so because common sense says if you don't have it, don't spend it, don't complain about it, just quit. Welfare reform. I'm getting beat up pretty good on this. Interestingly enough, the last time we had divided government, when President Clinton and the Republicans had the majority in Congress, we crafted this welfare reform that simply said, if you're not working and you're not looking for a job and you're not getting a better education, we're going to cut you off. That is a simple explanation for what we were doing. And some people get upset and cuss at me, but the funding of Obamacare, I don't know what else to say besides that you can't spend $2.6 trillion in an attempt to provide health insurance for 15% of this country. This is not for everybody. 15% of this nation, 15% of our citizens don't have health insurance today. 1-5. And we're going to spend $2.6 trillion to get it. I think not. I think not. Ma'am? Oh, you'd be better off. But here's the funny thing. We believe as Republicans, a part of our replacement theory, is if we take care of those who have pre-existing conditions, we have just solved the problem for 5% of the 15%. So a third are gone. $6 billion, gone. So we just saved $2.5 trillion. That's me on the floor repealing a part of Obamacare, which was the 1099s. They asked me to manage. You're very welcome. Thank you. I think I was in my 54th or 55th day of Congress, and they came to me and said, Tim, would you please manage the floor for the Republicans on this 1099 repeal? I was like, huh? Who are you talking to? You know, me is what they said, so they sent me out there. We had a good time. I got to fight with the Democrats. That was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. Our dependence on foreign oil. Let's just put it this way. Drill, baby, drill. The above, all the above strategy. Here's what we have to realize. In America, in our country, we have the ability, without any question, to be energy independent for at least 100 years based on current technology, current access to the resources, period. The EPA and the DOE and the OBAMA. We literally have a wreck on our hands where the EPA, they're passing laws, they're legislating now without being elected. They are literally the JKA, job-killing agency, without any question. They are awful. We have already, the House has passed bills to defund the EPA and take away parts. We are trying to looking for a better way of saying than, how do you say chop them off at the knees without saying chop them off at the knees? Okay, that's what we're trying to do. Yeah, whether it's drilling in Anwar, but even before we get there, you can go to Wyoming and the Dakotas, the Balkan Shales, and get 1.2 billion barrels of recoverable oil. You can go to Colorado, to the Rockies, and get over 2 trillion units of recoverable gas. We could do it tomorrow. We could start drilling. We could start drilling as soon as they give us a permit.
We started drilling when they said it 20 years ago.
We'd be there now. And then nuclear energy. A lot of folks are scared of the nuclear energy because of the whole Japan deal. The fact of the matter is, if you can put a submarine, there you go. There you go. 5,000 plus American soldiers, hundreds of feet underwater, and living to tell about it, nuclear energy is safe. We can do it. We can do it. We have to do it.
We don't have any night lights in my house.
He says they don't have any night lights in the house, but We'll have to explain, you have to explain Tesla energy to me. I'm not familiar with that one. And then on our military, I think I spent some time on that $692 billion that we spend on the defense. Fact of the matter is, once you extract the sacred cows of the Congress members out of it, what you actually have is the ability to reinvest those resources in such a way that we use technology to fight our wars and not people. I mean, whether it's drones or other things, we are in a strong position where these kids that live in the Taylor household and go to the Citadel, these kids can come out who understand how to play these little video games. That's one way we're learning how to land jets on aircraft landers. Those little drones, the guy can sit there somewhere else and land it. I mean, there are neat things happening. When you go through some of these briefings that we get to go through, you find out that the future is pretty bright if we can harness our technological opportunities and save American lives. Foreign aid, we ought to recalibrate our approach to foreign aid, give more to some and take away from others, from my perspective. One of the things that we do, one of the best uses of our foreign aid money goes to Israel. We've got some pretty poor uses of our foreign aid as well. But what we hope to do on the conservative side is to recalibrate our approach to making sure that our resources go where our allies are. Now, the unfortunate part are your allies change. Well, we have 15, I think there are, 14 or 15 of them. We have one strong ally who's actually a friend. I'd call that Israel. Great Britain's over there with us too, but there are a lot of places that were our allies or now our enemies, and they're using our technology to fight us.